Hello and welcome to HWCA'S interview with Jayne Corner. She specializes in hypnotherapy for holistic wellness and life transformation. She's going to tell us a little bit about that today. She's joining us from Australia. So hello, Jayne. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me. No, it's a great opportunity to share more about the wonderful world of hypnotherapy and how that impacts in terms of the gut and our health.
Yes, and we have quite a student base, and even our tribe that is in Australia. So I just love being able to connect with you guys. Plus, I love listening to you talk because your voice is just, your this accent is just so much more fun, I feel like, than ours. We always grow up little kids. I wish I had a fun accent, which I'm sure you don't to you.
Well, I'm actually English, so I've been over here for 10 years. So for some people, they'll probably think I sound very English, and to other people, they'll probably think I sound very Australian. So
I can hear both.
Yeah, a bit of a blend.
That's great. So, Jayne, will you tell us kind of a little synopsis about what you do? So a little bit like what you and I were just talking about.
Yep.
Just kind of what you do, and then we'll go into kind of how you got here. But what exactly? How do you describe what you do?
So I guess from a top-line perspective, I help people create change in their lives. And so often we know what we want to be doing or need to be doing, and we feel blocked. And that can be from a health perspective, knowing that, we really need to be eating better. That can be from an emotional perspective, which is, I really need to manage my anger, or, stress is having a big impact on my life, or I'm just looking to create some kind of change. And it's almost as if we feel that block inside, as if something inside of us is stopping us from achieving those goals. From a logical and rational perspective, it would be easy if we could go, yep, I'm going to start exercising 3 times a week, or I'm going to start, quitting the sugar, or whatever it might be. But and a lot of that, I'm sure we'll get into it, is about our subconscious and the beliefs and the habits and the patternings that we've grown up with. So I help my clients create change, and I work with them on shifting from a subconscious perspective to enable them to break through those blocks.
That's beautiful. One thing I just want to add before I ask you anything else I want to elaborate for you is just what we teach. So this is beneficial for anybody who's watching, whether it's an individual that is trying to heal anything, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and for coaches. This is some of the most crucial information I feel like you can have as a leader or anybody in the wellness world, is to understand, like we always say, life coach first, that focuses on health and wellness, because we spend so much time learning all the facts and the foods and all this stuff, and we don't understand that the strongest guiding factor for behavior exists within the deep mind and very much in spirit. So Jayne, how did you get into this?
Yeah, so my journey, and it's very much a journey. So I've been in the corporate world for a long time, working in advertising and marketing, which I think is one of the most stressful industries that you can be in. Mm-hmm. My own journey side by side is when I was 15, I was diagnosed with IBS, and the word diagnosis, I think, in a lot of gut issues is interesting, because often these things, it's more symptoms rather than an actual test.
Yes.
And at the time, I was undergoing some pretty severe sort of symptoms, and was told by the doctors, I mean, this is over 20 years ago, that there was nothing I could really do about it. So with that in mind, and I've never been one just to take, that, I guess, this is what you've got to do. I had to go off and thought, well, I'm going to find the answers myself. So thankfully, my mum was on board. She took me for allergy testing, understood that gluten and dairy were playing a role, and started to manage my diet. When, I guess, through university and starting into the corporate world, I was still trying to understand what was happening with my health. I would find that at times of stress, my stomach would really flare up, my symptoms would get nasty. And I was confused, and that set off a mission for me to heal myself and to heal my body. We were talking before, what led me really into practicing in this area was a bad breakup in my early 20s, and I started running, and it helped me to process the emotions I was feeling. It was an outlet rather than bottling it all up, and through that I became a personal trainer. I was also working in the advertising industry at the same time, so it was pretty busy, but it was a passion of mine. Unfortunately, knee surgery changed that course of my life, and at the same time I was still struggling with what foods I could eat, and I started a food blog, and my journey, I guess, led me across from London to Australia, and I started my own food business with organic, gluten-free, sugar-free snack foods. And in my mind I thought, great, if I can provide people with the tools, and it's saying, so exercise, fantastic, diet, fantastic, but so often, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a block. We know we should be doing these things. We know that our body needs nourishing and healthy food, but we don't, we can't seem to get through that internal block. So I became a wellness coach to really help coach people through. Coaching, I think, is only part of the journey. And then through really understanding mindset, I then became a clinical hypnotherapist. And that's sort of what's taking me to my journey today, where I work with people going, this is your roadmap. And in order to follow that roadmap, these are the barriers that are coming up for you, and this is how we're going to break through them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, I think you articulated that wonderfully. Yeah, and it's interesting how you talk about a breakup leading to, these things. I think a lot of us can relate to going through tragic. I mean, how emotion is subjective, and you can never tell anyone, sometimes breakups or loss of a loved one, or sometimes even a career, whatever, is very tragic. And so we cope the best we can. And I think that, I don't know how your journey went with that, but I think that sometimes what we can do is we can turn to those things and self-abuse. And I love that you brought in the mental and emotional aspect to that. I know I've been there, definitely. It was always especially with the breakup, you're going to show the world. But the mental and emotional healing aspect of being able to, be more introspective and intuitive and have it be a cathartic experience instead of, just a physical. I think that that's so awesome. So let's see what sorry guys, So how long have you been practicing this, Jayne?
So I have been practicing coaching hypnotherapy for coming up to 2 years now. So I said goodbye to the corporate world at that time. I realized it's just not me. And my dream has always been, and my passion has always been, to help support people on the wellness journey, having lived it myself and having experienced the frustration and the overwhelm of not feeling well, not feeling how we should be feeling. And I use that experience to help support my clients on their journeys. So yeah,
that is the resounding opinion, basically perspective in this world of, I call it, healing, is that I hurt and I don't want to see others hurt. I want to help them through something that I have gone through or am still working through. And that makes it so authentic and so sincere. That's why, you guys are so great. We're also good at this stuff because it's so sincere. To what extent do you believe that the mind influences the body and behavior?
Yeah, great question. I think there's two parts of that. One is the thoughts and beliefs that we have are going to impact how we treat our bodies. So if we have a belief that we're not good enough, or a deep-seated belief that you don't deserve health, which sounds crazy, and I'm sure there's people going to be going, I would never think that. It's unfortunately, when you really peel back the layers,
Yes.
there are some really self-destructive beliefs that we have about what we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mothers, just as an example, it's almost like as a mother, there's a belief that you don't have time for yourself. Like your health almost has to come last.
Mm-hmm.
After, you know, your family and your children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's something that comes up in sessions. So I think firstly, the beliefs that we have, the thoughts that we have, also the pattern that we've picked up from our parents on what health is and what we deserve to be. And the second part of that is the mind's ability to heal the body. So there's sort of mind-body healing. So it's two steps. One is the emotional component, and the second step is more a physical component. And there are countless research studies now about the power of guided visualization, and the power of hypnosis to switch on our body's innate healing ability. And it's remarkable. That science now backing it. So I see the mind-body healing in sort of two components.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there's more and more, I love that there's more documentaries and more things coming out that are showing really that piece. Like I know our students that take like the stress strategy, life coaching piece of the training, they really study a lot of that epigenetics and placebo, nocebo effect, and how even our good or our bad thoughts and feelings so strongly impact our cellular body. And, you know, they're showing that they're trying to more and more, well, I hope, medical professionals were trying to get aware of that, because what they're realizing is that they have so much power to give people a death sentence or hope by what they say, because there's so much trust and perceived authority there. So if they say, oh, you have 3 months to live, people are taking that to heart. Whereas if they say, oh, they give them a fake pill, a placebo that says, oh, this is a magical cure, all of a sudden that person's symptoms start improving, and they're starting to realize the impact that we need to be careful of our words, especially if we are in a position of authority or influence. And that's exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about that power of belief over how it's manifesting in our physical selves and our reality, not just our thoughts and feelings and energy, but literally our cellular body.
Yeah. Which
is amazing. That is just absolutely phenomenal. So what are you doing with this? I know that you had told me that you had self-hypnosis downloads. Can you tell us a little bit about that, or how that would benefit the average person who's at home, how they would use this?
So where I'll start is I'll start at the beginning in terms of our minds, of people who sort of don't understand the world of hypnosis or therapy is. And if we think about our minds, we have our conscious mind, which is estimated to be about sort of 5%, if you like, of our brain or our mind power. And that's where that rational, logical side of us lives. It's where we live day to day. If you're watching this or listening to this, you're most likely using the conscious part of your mind to do that. Conscious mind is the other part, and that's about 95%. And that's where your emotions, your values, your beliefs, your, unfortunately, your self-sabotaging patterns live as well. And ultimately, they come together to form the internal programs, which really dictate what shows up in your life, that you're running to, or rather that are running the show for you. What hypnotherapy allows us to do, or the state of hypnosis allows us to do, is to directly communicate with the subconscious mind, to shift the beliefs, to shift the emotions, to reprogram those patterns that you've learned from a very young age. And suddenly change becomes not only, I guess, possible, but it's also achievable. That happens in the state of hypnosis, which is when we slow down the brain waves. The state of hypnosis, unfortunately, some people assume, oh, it must be like the stage hypnotists. It is completely different. The The state of hypnosis is a very natural, deeply relaxed state. It's a state that we go into many times a day. It's a state that you would go into when you're reading a good book and you're focused intently on that book and everything else sort of fades out. It's a state that you would go into when you're meditating or in a yoga class. And it's when our brainwaves start to slow down from that sort of waking state through into alpha and theta, when we're not asleep, but where our, if you like, creative and our subconscious mind becomes a lot more open and alert. And our conscious mind, which is where that rational, logical, oh, that can't possibly work, side of ourselves, I wouldn't say it's asleep, but I would say it sort of goes quiet. So we like to put it over there.
Yeah.
And by using or working one-on-one with a hypnotherapist or self-hypnosis downloads, what we're doing is that person is guiding you down into the state of hypnosis and guiding you through a process to work on whatever it is that you're focused on. So for example, it might be around stress reduction. And guided hypnosis will get you into that state and also allow you to release stress and to, I guess the other thing is we have all the ability within ourselves and all the tools within ourselves. And that recording and that work can help you tap in to your own resources in order to better manage stress and to stop sometimes this vicious cycle that we can easily get into.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one thing I know, so for anyone watching who doesn't have a lot of experience with hypnosis, and why this is so beneficial and why guided hypnosis is so beneficial is because often part of hypnosis is the process of getting into a state, like you said, where we are in as relaxed of a state as possible, where we are open to communicating with our subconscious and actually reprogramming and changing those deep set beliefs and all that stuff. And where it helps to have a professional or even a taped something to follow is because often what we would do as the average Joe is going to sit down and be like, okay, we're going to do some deep breathing, and that's helpful. And we're going to try and calm down, and we're going to try and shut our mind up. And meanwhile, it's spitting off our grocery list and our kids are banging on the door. But when you go through guided hypnosis and guided imagery, whether in an office or even with a tape or, a download, we don't do tapes anymore, right? That's like so 20 years ago. But if we go through that, then we have a professional that actually knows to go through specific steps, that if you just listen along and follow those steps, it takes you to that place of much deeper relaxation than you could get to yourself, which also then allows you to be more open to then whatever reprogramming, soothing, and pattern change that you are seeking out to do. And that's why having somebody that can do that can take you to that point, is so beneficial. So I just want to speak that for you, because a lot of people don't know that, and they think about hypnosis as, getting on stage and doing all this silly stuff. And honestly, in hypnotherapy, you can't make someone do something against their will. You couldn't say, go pick up a knife and hurt that person, and they would just do it, unless they had murderous tendencies and wanted to do it anyway. There is that portion of self-control. What we don't realize is how the brain actually works, and how the subconscious, it's like a sponge, and it's soaked up so much good and negative garbage throughout your whole life. But it's our job now to dive into that and start healing and reprogramming the things that we don't even realize are our reality. Like, what is it? They say the subconscious mind is 30,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. That's like, do we even have a conscious free will at that? That is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up. So where is, if people were going to, and I want to talk about some other stuff after this, but I do want to make sure that we give everybody your contact info. So if they were going to find some of these downloads that you're putting together and your information, what is your site, Jayne? Where would they go to find that?
Yeah, so they can find me at jaynecorner.com. So it's Jayne with a Y, Jayne, and then corner as in CORNER, roundthecorner.com. I actually work over Skype. I'd say about 90% of my sessions are so here in Australia, you can have had a US clients as well. So all the information is on my website with individual sessions as well.
Awesome. That's great. So one thing I want to ask you, this is just a little free open speak here, is what, I don't know how much, you know, since you've trained or been doing this, but what are your opinions on, do you have much opinions on those first formative years? Like, I know I kind of have my opinions, like are a lot of our subconscious and what we are now, even as adults, I mean, do you believe it was a lot of that was really shaped in the first, 0 to 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, massively. So the estimate between when we're 0 to 7, and I say 0 because we might not be breathing the air in, you know, the world, but we're taking and still absorbing the emotions and the stresses of those around us and also from our mother. So between we're born to about 7, our brain wave state are in the state of theta, which is the state before delta in terms of, you know, sleep. Mm-hmm. It is a highly suggestible state. So what that means is that it's a programming state, and therefore, you know, from an evolutionary perspective, we need to be programmed to know as little kids, how do I function? How do I form relationships? How do I look after myself? What are the programs that I need to learn to get through life? And we are absorbed. You mentioned before, we're big sponges, and we really are. The problem with being in that theta state as a child is that we don't have the ability to judge. We don't have the ability to say, actually, that's not very nice, or that's not wrong. I mean, that's right, or I don't agree with that. We just absorb everything as fact. We don't question it. Absorb. If you see a relationship between, you know, your mother and father that's full of anger, and there's no right or wrong in this, you go, okay, so a close relationship is around, and that gets stored at the back of the subconscious. Mm-hmm. If you are within a family that, you know, from a health perspective, you know, focusing on that health, that, you know, it's quite normal for everyone to be smoking and drinking or whatever it might be, those habits. In the back of your mind, okay, well, that's how we're programmed, you know, to be. There's unfortunately a trend with obesity, you know, with the percentages between obese parents and then obese children, because we're learning these programs of how we should operate and whether we believe we're good enough. You know, even school teachers, if you get picked on in a class and you're told that you're a bad girl or a bad boy, I'm going to be with you. We don't know what programs sort of stay or which programs, you know, come out. That very much depends on the environment as we're getting older. So a long answer to your question, but I think absolutely hugely plays an impact on those early years.
Absolutely. That's so great. And see, this is something that when we talk about holistic wellness, it is well-being in every sense of the word. So even though we are health coaches and we focus a lot on health and diet and meditation and all the hippie stuff that some people might like roll their eyes at, but we're really also talking, like, I know I do a lot with mental health, with anxiety and depression. When we're talking about health, we're talking about overall well-being, and all of us can benefit from starting to look at ourselves in this holistic way, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And I think starting like what you're bringing to life here, you know, understanding how impactful our own childhood was and how much impact we have over our children, because I think everyone can agree we are living in a world where we need to nurture our children a lot more, and maybe the neighbor's kid, and maybe your child's friend at school, you know, who doesn't have as healthy, and we need to be able to see it, and we need to understand, you know, instead of just wanting to make all these changes, you know, later in life, and we won't get into a political conversation, but, you know, we all have these opinions about what to do after the fact, what tools to have or not to have around unhealthy people. What we're not talking about is the impact of the early years and what we can do about helping create healthier people. And you are just working in such an amazing position and an amazing place to understand how the brain works and how the subconscious works, and that we are all a product of that deep mind and the subconscious beliefs that we hold within ourselves that we may not even know.
Yeah.
It's just so great. Rather than, I won't trail on all this all night. Like that's my passion. So it comes out in every conversation. We're going to talk about kids, and we're going to talk about, nurturing people and helping them heal. But how do you use what you do for, let's say, gut healing? Because I know a lot of people watch this are going, okay, hypnosis for gut health. Like, do you use it specifically for helping people through their personal blockages so that they can follow the dietary and lifestyle protocols? And or do you use it directly as far as like concentrated hypnotherapy for actually like guided imagery for actual physical healing? Like, how do you use that?
Great question. So it's really interesting. So there's actually if you like, a type of hypnotherapy called gut-directed hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. Directed hypnotherapy is hypnotherapy targeted on the gut. It is about, or rather, it's mostly used for functional gut disorders. So IBS is a common one. And what that means is that there's no physical abnormality. So a bit like myself, I had lots of issues with my gut, went to the doctors, had lots and lots of tests, all negative. We don't know what's wrong with you. And so what gut hypnotherapy does, it works on the gut-brain axis. So the communication between what's happening in the brain and what's happening in the gut, and the opposite of what's happening in the gut, and how what's happening there and what impacts that's having on the brain. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. No one really knows how it works, but we know that it does work. And there are many research from the science background which shows that gut-directed hypnotherapy can work on motility, so the speed at which food is passing through the gut. It can work on the sensitivity of the gut. So for somebody who's presenting with a lot of pain in the gut, we start to impact how sensitive the gut is to pain. So antidepressants from an IBS perspective is one of the medications that's prescribed. And what that does is it reduces sensitivity in the gut. Because a lot of people go, why would you give antidepressants? That's why. It's reducing the sensitivity and the pain that you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. The other part of that is the emotional perspective. So to answer your sort of what you were saying, emotionally, absolutely. Anxiety and gut issues, along with depression and stress, are very intertwined. Mm-hmm. There's that question of what came first. Did my anxiety trigger my gut issues, or did my gut issues get my anxiety? Mm-hmm. And we get into this vicious circle, and somewhere we need some help to stop that cycle. Mm-hmm. And that's what it allows us to do. We can release those emotions that are being built up. We can release that anxiety. The second part of that is actually from a physical healing point of view. Our subconscious mind is also in control of those processes within our bodies, such as breathing, such as our heart rate, on the immune system and the healing when we cut ourselves. It's also, if you like, takes care of, we don't have to think about what happens once we've swallowed and that food moves through our GI tract. So we can actually impact and influence what's happening through the whole of the GI tract, and look to reprogram the misfiring of the nerves in the GI tract, and to, for example, if somebody is suffering a lot from diarrhea, we know that those nerves, it's almost like it's happening too quickly. And if somebody is suffering from constipation, the body is holding on for that far too long, and so we become constipated. And so those nerves, rather than having this, what it should be, this very rhythmic contraction and relaxation all the way down, especially when we look at the colon, what's happening is that, part of it might be firing over here, part of it might be firing over here, too quick, too slow. So we can actually, from a physical perspective, create some amazing changes, but also emotionally we can start to unlock what's happened. It's interesting that even though we don't necessarily know what has triggered someone's gut issues, sometimes it might be something that's happened in early childhood that has been triggered again. Let's say it was, as a child, you lost your family dog, making sort of an example of a dog, and that created a lot of emotion and stress. That's been up in the body. And it might be later in life that, you have a similar pet, that pet's died, and suddenly you've got all of these stomach issues. Where is it coming from? And we haven't connected the dots back to when you very, very first experienced that, because you haven't released that. You've been holding on to that. And sometimes that can be enough just to, if you like, just misalign or misalign what's happening within the body. So that's, it's a huge passion of mine just because of my own personal experiences.
Yeah.
Everyone is very different and I work differently, but ultimately it's about releasing the emotions, realigning what's happening in the body, and then rebalancing with nutrition, drinking enough water, moving the body, so exercise, and using the power of the subconscious mind to create new healthy habits. So it's all three really. It's very much a holistic approach.
Absolutely. And did doing this change how you viewed the body? Because I know over the years, as I've gotten into what, I do, I completely look at the body so differently than I ever did before. It's this intricate, fully connected, like you say, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first? Anybody that thought, like how you're talking about our brain impacting literally the nerves and functionality of our gut. Anybody who questions whether or not that could be valid, just think of any time you've ever gotten very nervous and all of a sudden you've got to use the bathroom. Things like that, that right there, that is your brain gut connection right there. And that is your emotions all of a sudden setting off your body. And your gut has it has all kinds of neurons. It's its own separate brain virtually. It's the second brain. So it makes sense, that all of that is the same. So do you kind of at all consciously, I guess, kind of state like a time or how your view of the body and of individuals has evolved with this knowledge?
I guess I'm lucky that my father is a scientist from a science background. My mom is actually an energy healer. I learned from an early age, I guess, growing up with her, that the body has an innate ability to heal itself.
Yes.
Still, I guess, learning. I wasn't quite ready to step into that field myself. And my mother kind of always said, one day you'll be doing this. I'm no, funny where life takes you.
She subconsciously programmed you.
Possibly, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
I think I knew that from an energetic perspective, we could really impact the body. I am a Reiki 2 practitioner. I'm also, I do crystal healing. And so I was like, great. But as soon as I started to study hypnotherapy and really understand how you could come at it, not just from an energetic perspective, but from the power of the mind, my mind, and it still does. Every client that I get, the transformation is just, I still go, how is this, how is this possible? Because it is so incredible. And I would say I'm a very, I'm a skeptical person, but I'm also a believer, and I have to see it to believe it. And it's just amazing. The things I'm capable of, and the ability to heal and realign dysfunction in the body I don't think you can sort of overlook it. To what you said, we can have all of the tools, but unless our mind is fully integrated on where we want to go, I question how far we can go without getting all of us on that process.
Yes, and with the way that modern care goes with modern medicine, it's very opposite than what we're talking about. And I know that that's why we're all very passionate about helping educate people so that they can make the choices that are best for them. Because we do all need to realize that our body is one whole functioning machine, and it needs to be nurtured entirely. I love the stuff that you brought up about, you know, childhood, and we see a lot of those patterns. You know, we even see things in, you know, they even have a lot of connection to in utero experiences, like what you're talking about, and just, you know, kids being around. If they had a really anxious mom, if the mom dealt with a lot of anxiety during pregnancy, the kids came out more anxious, you know, and they were a fetus, but it makes sense because they had a heartbeat, they had a brain that was working, they were in a little safe place, they're listening to everything that goes on with you, you know. So it really, you give a lot of respect to life, you know, the way we were created. It's something to step back and just be like, wow, and look at all the gifts we have that we can use. You know, it gives a lot of hope. I love what you do, Jayne. I think it is just so exciting. So is there anything else that you would like to share with everybody, or, you know, anything else you'd like to say on all this?
Yeah, I think when you're feeling that block, and it doesn't matter where you're feeling that block, don't dismiss it. I think so many people rely on, you know, willpower will only get you so far. And sometimes it can feel in life that you're on this uphill battle, and it feels hard. It feels hard to make the changes. It feels hard to keep push. Honestly, it doesn't have to be hard. Whether you use self-hypnosis, and there's some, you know, I've got some audios on my website, and there's some amazing audios out there. You just sort of, you know, Google, or go and see somebody who specializes in hypnotherapy to help you work through those blocks, because life, I believe, isn't designed to be this continuous uphill battle with, you know, well-being. And there are steps that we can take to really fully be on that path. We don't have to keep butting into ourselves. So yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Jayne. We're going to stop recording in just a minute, but I just want to recap where everyone can find you. It's at, your website is, go ahead and say it one more time for everybody.
So it's JayneCorner.com. That's Jayne with a Y, Jayne, and corner as in round the corner.com.
And I will also put that kind of in the bio anywhere that we're sharing this video. So if you need, you can also see her website in the bio. So thank you guys for joining. And I hope that you really check out her website and, you know, think about some of the things she said. She's brought a very important, I'd say maybe even the most important aspect to gut health, to holistic healing, to the table with what she shared today. So thank you, Jayne. Have a great day, everybody.